back at it.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Infinite Repeat. I'm your host, Nate, and I'm here to talk about the new Matrix movie, Matrix Resurrections.
After all these years, to be going back to where it all started. Back to the Matrix.
It's been 18 years since the last Matrix movie, and honestly, I wasn't really looking forward to this movie when it was first announced, mostly because I couldn't help but think, why? Why now? Why make a sequel to the Matrix trilogy? And then I stopped to think about it for 2 seconds, and then I realized the answer. We have been drowned in sequels, reboots, remakes, rehashes, whatever you want to call them. Hollywood over the years is no planning on stopping these things. And I'm not completely against re-exploring something if you have something to add to the original. For example, Blade Runner 2049, which not only adds to the original but brings us new fresh ideas to the table, which don't feel out of place to the world they already created. This movie, however, doesn't do that in my opinion. It mostly relies heavily on nostalgia and what became before with the original trilogy. And you're gonna hear that word a lot when it comes to this movie, nostalgia. What is funny is that there's another movie that came out recently. I don't know if you heard about it. It's a little something called Spider-Man No Way Home. Both The Matrix and Spider-Man pretty much relies on the audience having seen those previous movies. Even having actors recite lines from previous movies, Easter eggs throughout, and fan service. But it's not nearly as distracting as it is in this movie. Heck, I don't remember in Spider-Man where they literally show clips and scenes from the previous trilogy. And they do that throughout this whole movie.
Mr. Neo.
You have characters who are played by new actors like Morpheus and Mr. Smith, who not only say lines from the previous movies, but they say their lines, point out that they're saying previous lines, and then the movie shows clips from those movies where they're lines that they're saying from. It is very distracting.
I think people will like the directional change that Lana's taken. She's not just tried to make the original film again.
And honestly, I feel like it's a disservice to these actors. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who plays Morpheus, and Jonathan Groff as Mr. Smith, because they are fine at this, but you can't help but compare them to Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving, respectively. Jonathan in particular reminds me of when Ian Bliss was pretending to be Hugo Weaving in Revolutions, who was also pretending to be another character in that movie. And that was fine, but this is supposed to be the same Mr. Smith, right? This is the same Mr. Smith from the trilogies, but he doesn't feel the same, which makes me feel like, why didn't they just make a different character altogether? It almost feels like the writers feel like they had to add Morpheus and Mr. Smith again because they realized the new cast that they had are not up to snuff. I mean, there's Jessica Henwick as Bugs, and then there's a bunch of other characters you don't really care about. And like the supporting cast in the original movies didn't really matter that much, and they weren't as compelling as the trio, but at least you got to know them somewhat.
To deny our own impulses is to deny the very thing that makes us human.
Whereas this movie, it's not long you get to introduce to these characters, and then you get introduced to another character from the original movies, Jada Pinkett Smith's character. And that's what I'm talking about. This movie really relies on the nostalgia factor. Like, oh look, it's Keanu Reeves, it's Carrie Moss's character, but I don't think that's enough.
Living out their lives. Oblivious.
Alright, I feel like I'm being overly negative about this movie. What are some positives? Okay, well, one thing I really like is they do dive into the relationship between machines and humans. A lot has happened between this and the last movie, and Neo's sacrifice in that movie did not go in vain. And now in this movie, you actually have machines, programs, and humans actually working together. And there actually was a war between the machines and other machines. And I think that's all really interesting, even though the movie doesn't explore that nearly enough. Also, I really liked the opening of this movie, where they spent time recreating the opening of the original movie. And I wish they kind of stopped there when it came to that. And of course, it's good to see Keanu and Carrie again. And, I like the music. And that's about it when it comes to this movie. Which comes to the most disappointing part of this movie for me, and that's the action. See, the Matrix trilogy aren't just sci-fi movies, they're action movies, they're kung fu movies. These movies revolutionized action back in the day, at least for Western audiences. The actors trained not just for weeks, but for months, perfecting the action scenes, even hurting themselves.
I thought I'd broken my wrist one day, and it blew up, and I think I hit Hugo in the chest. some point. And I got kicked in the ribs, and both my ribs were cracked. So lots of little things like that. It was actually all right in the end.
Also, the team hired professionals like Yu Wing Ping, martial arts choreographer and director who worked on many films in Hong Kong. The cinematography as well in the original is a stand above the rest. I mean, you can grab multiple scenes from the original movie, even the sequels that look like amazing pieces of art, and I feel like this movie doesn't really have any standout moments like that. This movie just feels like everyday modern action movie. I was literally bored at the later half of this movie, where Neo was mostly force pushing most of the opposition in this movie. I mean, where's the creativity? Where's the passion?
Dollar, 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 ching, ching, bling, bling, got the chatter. You ain't.
In the end, I really don't think this movie was truly necessary. Despite my ranting in this, I didn't want to hate this movie. At least I wanted something from this, something to justify bringing this franchise back, other than... I think overall, I have to give this movie 1 bullet time out of 5. And that's my review for Matrix Resurrections. And if you like this movie, just so you know, I'm not trying to attack you on your opinions on this movie. This is just how I feel. And if you disagree with anything I said in this, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and maybe consider subscribing for future content. Anyway, I've been Nate, and thanks for watching Infinite BP. Stay up.